Hey guys, it's Targon doing a Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we're going to go over the Lonatharil fusion calendar and talk strategies and so forth. And I gotta tell you, like I'm looking over the events calendar. So and just a disclaimer, I'm not going to be going for this fusion on either account. I've got a lot of things going on this week that's going to keep me away from the game, so I'm probably going to miss the opportunity to really get most of the fragments early on. Um, that said, I don't think I would go for this anyway because I'm not completely thrilled with him in terms of, like, is he going to be a game-changing champion? No, I don't think so. And then I'm looking at this calendar, and I'm sorry, I've got to call BS on this, Plarium. Like, this is going to be one of the hardest, most brutal uh, fragment fusion combinations that I've ever seen. I have done some pretty brutal fusions before. I've done this type of I forget which one it was where I did this type of fusion. There's been a few where you have to collect the fragments for all the epics. You fuse those and then you level up the epics and ascend them and then fuse them into your champion that's the legendary. And you can't miss any one of these guys. And I mean, this is like there's no way if you want to get the legendary, like you've got to get pretty much all the fragments. Unless you're winning the tournaments, you're gonna have to get like the top score on every event. So usually, like, you're doing the champion chase. Like, I'll look at the champion chase, right? So we got the champion chase tournament kind of at the top left-hand corner of the calendar there. That's starting off tomorrow on Friday. And you'll see Carolina and then Wuji. I'm not sure if I might be butchering these names. I'm sorry. So Carolina, the 20, that's probably going to be around like the, 1,500 to 2,000 mark. And then Wuji's going to be probably closer to like the 4,000 plus mark usually. So I'll usually kind of like look at who are the champions on Champion Chase and who are the champions that are going to be at the Summon Rush. So if you look kind of in the bottom center there, you'll see the Summon Rush. Guess who's at the end of that? Yeah, the same champion, Wuji. So if you want to get the legendary champion, you have to go up on both summoning events. That's going to make it very, very difficult for someone who is newer to the game or does not have as many resources. It's basically forcing us to spend tons of resources in terms of shards just to get this, if we want to get the legendary champion. And you'll look here, so just above that Summon Rush there, you'll see the Dungeon Diver event. Again, at the end is Wuji. The Dungeon Divers sometimes can be one of the harder ones just because there's so many other events going on. So you've got to get the last of the fragments there if you want to get her. So I'm thinking Wuji is probably going to be like the hardest one to get. Now, the good news is, in looking over the epics, I wasn't as thrilled with her, honestly. Actually, I think the other three epics are more viable in terms of just having a spot on my roster. And so Wuji's kind of maybe like the throwaway epic here. So if you wanted to go for the epics, you could do that. And honestly, these epics are really good, especially the other three. Carolina, Yelgren, I have no idea. Yelagrin, Yelagrina, I don't know how that's pronounced. And then Anchorite, again, sorry if I'm butchering the names. All three of them are actually fairly intriguing to me. I'm not sure if on my main account I would really use them, but it would be interesting to like experiment with them and see how they could be used for a number of different teams. So I'm thinking like honestly, guys, unless you've got plenty of shards, this would probably be a good one to skip and maybe just try and go for a few of these epics. So let me go ahead and look at some of their skills here. So this guy, Anchorite, his A1 is actually really interesting. I'm not sure how hard he hits. That's really gonna, so how hard he hits is really gonna make this or break this. Attacks all enemies, heals the ally with the lowest HP by 10% of the damage inflicted. That could be really interesting, especially if you were to just put a bunch of like counterattacks on. So that way he's continuously healing everybody. This could be an interesting skill on an A1. Um, Also, it's an A1 that attacks all enemies, so you could maybe throw him in a stun set if you wanted, and get some crowd control plus healing. So I would say probably like if you're struggling in Sacred Order faction, definitely consider going for this guy. His A2 removes one random debuff from all allies and then increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn. So that's an interesting option. Even to use him in some of the clan boss setups where you're increasing buff duration for like infinity shields and so forth. And then his A3 fully heals a target ally and then places an increased crit rate and an increased crit damage buff on all allies for 2 turns. Guys, this is like almost as good as one of the legendary buffs here. He places an increased crit damage and then does the ally attack, which granted, this is a good move, but this is not going to be like earth-shattering. Um, like, I don't know, maybe because he's like an HP-based champion and easier to keep alive, this skill is going to be much more viable in more content than, say, someone like Kreela or other ally attackers. But for me, like, ally attack isn't necessarily something that's going to, like, make or break it. I think mid-game, he's going to be really good. Again, mid-game, he's going to be really good. But you see here, he's got the increased crit damage. This guy, he brings kind of the increased crit damage and the increased crit rate for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. He's an epic, going to be a lot easier to get. Increases ally HP by 25% in all battles. And I don't know if I've actually seen this in a skill before with fully heals a target ally. Now, that is a single ally, but this is going to be a really useful skill here. Because it's going to just completely bring somebody up. So if you've got someone who's constantly taking damage, like say a ally protect champion, bring this guy in, boom, he's right back up to full health. To me, honestly, this would be one of the more interesting champions to play around with because of just his healing capacity, especially if he's able to inflict some decent damage on this A1. All right, so that's him. Wuji, again, she's the one that's like at the back end of all the summoning stuff. So A1, decent, 30 or, 50% chance of placing a weekend for 2 turns. That's great. Targets all enemies when counterattacking. So that could be interesting if you build her in a counterattack team or in counterattack gear. She'd be doing hits everybody. A2, this is decent. Attacks all enemies, 70% chance of block buffs, or 75% chance of placing block buffs. So that's certainly useful. It's not a 100% chance, but this is good. Kind of not quite as good as Ugo, but this is still a decent skill, and I don't know if I've seen block buffs, AoE block buffs on a Force champion before, so that could be useful. And then her A3 does perfect Veil. Okay, so she does counterattack on herself. So that's going to make this much more interesting. So if she hits hard, she could certainly be good. And definitely with Shadowkin, that might be really helpful for Shadowkin faction. Carlinia attacks one enemy, has a 60% chance of placing HP burn for 1 turn. It's nice. not great, but for an A1, that's solid. HP burn is really useful, especially like in Hydra and so forth. A2, attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing decrease attack, and it can't be resisted if the target is under HP burn. This could be really useful, especially in Hydra. I'm just looking at, HP burn is great in Hydra. Um, this could also be useful just in Clan Boss. HP burn it does decent damage, and if you're not going unkillable, you're going to want decrease attack. So this could be good in Clan Boss. Then her A3 decreases duration of all debuffs on all allies by 1 turn, then places 15% strengthen on all allies for 2 turns. Buff cannot be removed or stolen. So that's actually really good. Strengthen, I think this is the lesser version of strengthen, unfortunately. But strengthen's a good buff to have. Honestly, I almost looking at her like she could be a potential Clan Boss champion. Just because strengthen is helpful and decreasing duration of all debuffs, if that includes stun, you could use her to cleanse the stun, as long as she's going, before whoever's the stun target, and assuming she is not the stun target herself. Passive, every time an enemy under HP burn gets a turn, decreases duration of 2 random buffs on that enemy for 1 turn. That's interesting. Again, could also be good in Hydra. Nothing really earth-shattering with her, but it's decent. And then this one, Yelgarina, Orc, attacks 1 enemy 2 times, increase attack buff on this champion if she kills an enemy with this skill. Okay, that's interesting. Probably won't come into play very often, but hey. I'm guessing she hits hard just because of kind of how her kit is geared. Attacks all enemies on her A2. Has a 100% chance of placing decrease attack. Always nice. AoE decrease attack. A3 attacks 1 enemy. Has 75% chance or 100% chance when invoked of placing block buffs and block active skills for 2 turns. This attack is always critical. So that's an interesting skill here. You're guaranteed to land a critical hit. Depending on the multipliers on this, this could be a really awesome skill. And then it's like, even if you don't kill the target, you're still blocking any buffs from going on, and you're blocking active skills. So in Arena, say, you smack their nuker with this. Maybe she kills him, but even if not, it's going to block any buffs from going on, like if Duchess tries to throw a Perfect Veil up, or someone's trying to put like a healing buffs on them or whatever. That's going to get blocked. They're not going to be able to use their skills. It could be good to use this to target the reviver so that they can't revive if you can get the block active skills on there. And then she's got this passive revives 1 random ally with 50% HP every time this champion kills an enemy. So, interesting. A lot of her kit is kind of situational, so I'm not like, oh my gosh, I gotta have this epic. I probably would not really use her, but it could be fun to try and build a team. And if you're lacking a good reviver, especially maybe in the Orc faction, she could be really good. Blocking buffs, blocking active skills, those are always really good to have, and it is a 3-turn cooldown. And the AoE decrease attack is a good skill, so she's going to be solid as well. So, again, kind of going back to Lonatharil, I might be overly critical of him, but honestly, like, I'm just not thrilled with this kit. The ally attack is interesting. His shield is interesting. The shield's going to be on a 3-turn cooldown. The ally attack's going to be on a 4-turn cooldown. These are good skills, but they're not going to be earth-shattering. And given the amount of shards that you're going to have to pull in order to get this champion, for me personally, I would just say I'm going to skip it. I'm going to wait for either a guaranteed champion event to come up, or just wait for the next fusion and go for them. That said, if you are struggling with progression, like if you're struggling in the dungeons, you're struggling in getting through just some of the waves in Doom Tower, this guy might be able to help you enough to kind of put you over the top there, just because bringing in a shield champion is really going to be helpful. So if you don't have other shield champions, this guy's going to be really good. I did cover this in another video, but I'm just going to reiterate. So his A2 is kind of the big thing. It places a shield on all allies for 3 turns, equal to 20% of his max HP. And this is a 3-turn cooldown. It also attacks all enemies, so maybe it hits hard. So 20% of his max HP is good. There's much better shields, shield multipliers on some of the other legendary champions. Like Brogni's is 30%, if I remember correctly. And now this is for 3 turns, but you got to think if your champions are all taking damage, the shield's probably not going to last 3 turns anyway. Now, if there's any dead allies, the shield on all enemies goes up to, or on all allies goes up to 30% of his max HP, and it can't be removed or stolen. So this would, if you have a dead ally, this is going to be great in like the Scarab boss, so because he can't strip it off. But that's it. I don't want to have a dead ally. I don't want to need to have one of my allies go down in order to get the full value of his kit. If this aspect was just there, like if you take out that you need a dead ally, then I'd say this guy, then I'd be much more tempted to go for him. I still probably, I would consider it on my alt account, because I think he could really help with some of the Doom Tower stuff. But needing to have an ally dead in order to get this is just wasteful, in my opinion. And again, the ally attack, well, if one ally is dead, you've got one less attacker. I do not like how they built this in there. Again, ally attack, I don't really use it. I've never really used much with ally attack except for in some clan boss runs where I use Kreela. So if you wanted to use him in clan boss, if you don't have an unkillable clan boss team and you want to bring in a shield and you want to bring in an ally attack, he's going to be great. He puts increased crit damage on everybody. You build everybody with 100% crit rate, and then you use him to kind of shield everybody, minimize clan boss damage, and then team up and do a team attack. That is going to be useful. Not going to be as game-changing as if you're running an unkillable team, or if you're using even, say, Brogni, or some of these other legendary shield champions. I think are going to be able to carry you through that a little bit better. A1 places shield buff on the champion with the lowest HP. I mean, again, this is going to be helpful in Scarab, but if you're not keeping the shield up the whole time, someone might trigger the counterattacks and so forth. So I just think he's geared for Doom Tower. I think he's going to be really solid in Doom Tower, but still, in my mind, not really worth it, especially for where I'm at. If you're in the mid game, he might be worth it. But again, if you're mid-game, you're going to have a harder time getting the shards. So I want to go back to, I'll just go back to this. Again, in order to get him, you have to get all of these epic champions, right? And so Wuji's going to be the hardest one to get unless you've got stockpiles of shards. And you're going to need, because she's got 25 points on the Summon Rush, and then 20 points on the Champion Chase tournament. You have to get both of these. Even if you win all the tournaments, it doesn't matter. She's got a plus 15 from winning the tournament, but that's not going to make up for losing 25 on the Summon Rush or losing 20 on the Champion Chase tournament. I think one of them is the Champion Chase tournament that you get the right. Let's see. Yeah, Champion Chase tournament gives a plus 10 if you win it. it's kind of a moot point. You've got to get the fragments from all the other stuff pretty much anyways. I guess you'd get to skip if you got 10. There's no place where there's 10. There's places with 15. So you would have to win Champion Chase and Ice Golem Tournament. Forget it. It's not worth it. You're probably not going to be able to get that. And then you get to what? Skip the end of the Champion Training event? Great, but I don't know. So getting her is going to be really hard. Um, some of these other ones are going to be a bit easier to get. So, if you want to go for the legendary, certainly. I don't want to throw too much of a wet blanket. I'm kind of frustrated because I feel like this champion is a mid-game champion with a fusion designed for an end-game player. Just because of how grueling it's going to be, how many shards it's going to be. It's just... It, for my main account, this champion is not necessarily worth it. Like he'd probably become a vault champion. On a mid game account, he could be really, really helpful. But on a mid game account, getting that last bit on the summon rush and getting the top level of the champion chase tournament it's so difficult. And then you add on top of it, guys, you got to collect all these fragments. You fuse the fragments. You get all these champions. Then you got to level them all to level 50. You've got to ascend them all. This is going to be really grueling, and I think the return that you get, at the end of the day, is much less than you get on some of the other champions. That's just my opinion. I know some people really like him. I'd sooner go for one of the epics. Probably if I was to get one, I'd go with this guy, the Anchorite, just because the way that his kit is geared is very interesting, and just from a enjoyment standpoint, I would actually enjoy trying to craft some teams and see how I could use him. Am I going to go for him? I'm not sure. It depends on how things break down. If I'm able to pick up a few fragments, Spider Tournament should be relatively easy. Classic Arena Tournament, pretty easy. He's early on the Dungeon Divers. He's in the Artifacts. So actually picking him up, on probably what I'll do is I'll try to pick him up, and that'll be it. I definitely would encourage people to pick him up, especially if they're struggling in areas and would like to get a healer. I think he will be useful. Maybe not necessarily useful in the end game stuff, but for progression, I think he's going to be very useful. Not as useful as the legendary, granted, but in terms of how much you have to spend to get the legendary, if I'm a mid-game player and I'm thinking, do I want to break the bank on shards, break the bank on energy, in order and spend hours and hours and hours for the next 2 weeks grinding away to get the legendary champion, or I could hold my shards, right? He's not on any of the shard pulls. It's Carlina and Wuji for both of the shard pulling ones. I can hold my shards, save for the next fusion, and I can save some of that energy and pick up a champion that's going to help carry me through a fair amount of content. I think he's, depending on the damage multipliers of his A1, but even without that, the full champion heal, you throw him in with an ally protect champion, that's going to be a really good combo just to carry you through progression. So that would be my recommendation. Feel free to disagree with me. If you disagree, please comment. I want to hear. I'm perfectly open to being wrong and seeing Lonatharil go on to be like this crazy end game champion. It's just I don't really see it based on his kit. I'd sooner throw Brogni and Kreela into a team and have their two, the shields and the ally attack there. And but if you see it, let me know. Feel free to disagree. I think that's great, actually. I think there is some disagreement. Even with some of the people in my clan, we got some people are like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be great. And others are like, no, thank you. So I am in the no thank you crowd. But, if you like him, let me know. All right. So hope you found this to be informative. I do hope this helps you kind of think through how you want to go about this. You know, I wish that there was a better strategy here, um, but there really isn't. You just kind of have to push through and get everything basically. You know, you might be able to skip. I'm just looking real quick. So Carlina, there's 15 extra fragments, not counting the tournament ones. So you could skip like the Dungeon Diver event at the end. There's 15 on her there. I think, you know, some of these other ones, you might be able, if you're going for one of the epics, you look, you know, just study the image, look at where you can maybe skip, and kind of try and strategize and plan that out. But just know that Wuxi and Carlina, if you want them, you're going to have to do both the Summon Rush and the Champion Chase. Granted, Carlina is going to be a lot easier because she's further down on both of those. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And let me know your thoughts. Please feel free to, you know, tell me how wrong I am. Uh, I look forward to those comments actually. So hope this was helpful. So take care. I'll catch you next time.